Okay, great. We're at 60 plus people already. Hopefully, many of you will join us here on the Mirrorboard, and we'll have a productive session. Let's see where you are. Wow, Europe is super populated here, getting a bit crowded. It's a bit of an epicenter for the circular economy. All right. Great, all over Europe, and some from India, Southeast Asia, South Africa, Turkey, Brazil, United States. If we could all mute ourselves, please. Great. So hopefully you're all familiar with the workings of Mirror. If you have issues, like I say, drop it in the chat there. James will facilitate you in anything you need to learn about that. It's quite straightforward. What we'll be doing today doesn't require kind of advanced skills in any way, but thank you very much for that. Let's stay going to make the best use of our time. So this is what we're going to be working on today. We have our challenge. How might we enable the emergence of a circular economy? And we'll mainly be working here in these two outer circles here, posting up our ideas. So firstly, we have this circle here, which is about mapping the actors and the factors affecting this system's dynamic. So with this canvas, we're trying to get a holistic perspective on this challenge of shifting to a circular economy. So we've put up the different dimensions here that we might consider: social, cultural, economic, industrial, environmental, technological, so on and so forth. And this is for us to work on those different areas and post up our ideas around it. And hopefully by the end of it, we'll be able to step back and really get that kind of bigger picture view of the whole thing and see it from those different dimensions. So that's the first circle there. We'll be working there for about 20 minutes or so. And then afterwards, we're going to go here to leverage points. We're going to ask, where may we intervene to grow beneficial outcomes? So this is kind of systems gardening concept. What factors do we want to try to dampen down or amplify to enable the emergence of this new system over time? So we'll be working there, on those two sections, and I'm just going to show you quickly an example. I have a couple of examples here, what that might look like. So down here we have food, and one of the factors might be landfilling of food waste. We know that's a very counterproductive activity, but it's one factor here. And then out on the leverage points, we might have an idea around developing home decomposing biomaterials in response to that. So that's one example. Up here around commerce, you might have something, the need to sell more units to generate revenue. That's kind of part of the business model here, and we know it's a big problem. We might think about going to an as a service product model. So we shift that dynamic. So those are quick examples of what we're talking about. And we're going to jump in there in a minute now. Just before we get started, let's take a look at how the tokens here, the rewards, actually, so there's 50 little tokens here, and the coaches, we have 5 coaches. You're going to briefly get introduced to them now in a minute, but they're going to be trying to surface the good ideas as we go along. As you post up your ideas, they're here to help us try and find the good ones. They're going to be giving out these tokens just like this as we go along. And so these tokens are redeemable for euros. One token is worth €1. I'll give you info at the end of the session how you can do that. And we'll come back to that. So each token is 20, each of these units is 20 tokens. So we have our 5 coaches here who are going to be doing that and animating the discussion as we go along. Just briefly, let's have a little hello from them. Dina, would you like to say hello? Are you on mute, Dina?
Hello, everyone. So nice to meet all of you and seeing you all joining us from all over the world. My name is Dina El-Falali. I have a background in urban environmental systems engineering. During the day, I work as an entrepreneur for different organizations. And in the evening, I basically conduct my insights as process facilitator, manager, and complex challenges to work together towards more urban systems, sustainable and regenerative, but also resilient one. I try to conduct those insights into poems and short stories and a book, and these I also share to inspire actually the facilitating of collaboration between different parties.
Great, a poet, just what we need. Thank you, Dina, and maybe you know Dina from the last time she was here. Courtney, do you want to say hello, please?
Sure.
So Dina's, sorry, just to give locations here, Dina's in the Netherlands, and Courtney, you're in Paris, right?
That's right, yes. Hi, everybody. Really nice to see so many of you here. And basically, as Joss mentioned, just recently relocated to Paris, but spent the past 7 years out of Bangkok, working across the grassroots to government spectrum, from working with UNDP's innovation team to also as a volunteer, co-founding and leading a circular design lab. So we very much looked at a systemic design application as a practitioner, trying to surface from the community different ways to be strategic about how we could drive change on things like air pollution to things like waste management, things like that. But currently also working with UNICEF, their global innovation team on climate innovations, and really excited to constantly evolve the practice. And I think the idea with the tokens, right, says good ideas, but really there's no bad idea, right? So I think together, I'm very keen to hear about how collectively we'll put ideas forward during the next 90 minutes. So thanks so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to learning from everybody as well.
Great, thank you very much, Courtney. So Rebecca, you're in South Africa.
Yes, hi everyone. It's really nice to be here. I'm joining from Cape Town, and yeah, my background is one in biomimicry, where we take inspiration from nature into different systems and different designs. And so that is really the perspective that I'm hoping to bring through today, is one of bioconnectivity, of connecting humans and nature and finding those synergies there as well in bringing forward a circular economy and establishing this economy that it is good for both social and ecological health. And so I'm really happy to be part of this collective and happy to see what ideas come through today. So yeah, looking forward to working with everyone.
Cool, thank you very much, Rebecca. So Danielle, you're in Portugal.
Right, I'm joining from the north of Portugal, from the region of Porto. I'm very happy to join you all. My background is in biomedical engineering sciences and also project management, as well as circular economy, of course. Apart from that, I also have interest in studying complexity and system sciences. And I'm joining you as a freelance circular economy practitioner and consultant. And just a short word about what keeps drawing me and keeps sparking my interest in the circular economy. I think it's its ability to conciliate the economic, social, and the environmental domains. So I think it's a very good way of thinking society for the long term, and also from decoupling, let's say, resource extraction and the deposition of intractable waste from economic activity. So I'm very happy to join you. So yeah, I'll pass my word. Yeah.
Great stuff. Thank you, Danielle. So a hub representative. Great. We have Marissa with us from Singapore.
Hi, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Marissa. I'm based in Singapore, but maybe you can hear I'm actually originally from London. I joined the SI community maybe around a year and a half ago, maybe. I've been working within the community and trying to build a hub in Singapore as well as kind of the greater region. I have a background in innovation, and most of it has been in corporate innovation, but actually a few years ago I made a kind of transition into kind of sustainability-led innovation and more around kind of business models, including the circular economy as one of those kind of archetypes. And this is my favorite part of working in innovation, is doing workshops and facilitating. So I love to ask questions. So if I ask you really challenging questions, it's not meant as an attack. It's actually meant to kind of understand more and to kind of surface new ideas and different thinking. So thanks for kind of joining us. And I guess I'll see you around in the community a bit more. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much, Marissa. So let's jump right. You'll be hearing more from coaches as we go along. Let's get started. Just in terms of timing, it might look a little bit like this. We're already 15 minutes in here, so you'll take about 10 to 15 minutes for you to post up your ideas, and then have about 20 minutes or so discussion. We'll be iterating on that twice before some wrap up at the end and takeaways. So here's the board. Let me get rid of my examples. I would like you to join. And as mentioned, we're going to start in this circle here of mapping. And I would like you to post up any factors or actors that you think are actually affecting this dynamic here. So you can see we've kind of broken it down a little bit, cultural, behavioral, policy, education, media, finance. If it's a general one, like a business model or something like this, then put it under the general topic of economics. If it's specific, then try to cluster around these ones here: commerce, supply chains. Down here we have technology and industry, manufacturing, construction, energy, transport. Over here, environmental factors, food, water, atmosphere, materials, and so on. So to do this, you just grab a sticky here and you paste it down and you type away. If you could please keep your sticky relatively small, because we will have quite a few of them here. If you keep it around this size, that'd be great. But let's get started. I'm going to set a timer now, and I encourage you all to post up any ideas that you may have.
Joss, is it worth saying for people to log into Miro at all, or is it okay as they are?
I think that they are logged in already. Yeah, they should be.
I think there's a default for people to be a visiting builder or artist or something. So yeah,
okay,
should be fine.
Yeah. So let's set a timer here. We'll go maybe, let's take about 14 minutes, and that's a bit of time. So let's do our best to come up with some really good perspectives here. And I'll set a timer and we'll work away. If you have any questions, as mentioned, you can post them in the chat. Yeah.
Sorry, could you recap this portion that we're doing in this particular section?
Hi, Aaron. Sorry, Justin, if you picked that up, Aaron had a question about just recapping what we're doing right at the moment.
Okay, sure. So in this sector, Aaron, we're mapping out the factors that are affecting this dynamic. We have a linear economy at the moment, and there are certain things that are holding that in place, certain aspects that are fulfilling that function, should we say, of that particular paradigm to economic organization. And we're trying to map those out, put up all those factors there. As I said, there can be social, economic, environmental, and so forth. So if you could post up your ideas on that. If you take a quick look at the other people's, you'll get an idea of what's going on there. Yeah. we could all try to keep our stickies the one color, so it's this light yellow here. Yeah, that would be great. Thank you very much.
Just a question from Malthus here, asking for a quick recap on the activity we're doing.
Sure. So for those new joiners, we're in the first section here where we're mapping the actors and factors affecting the transition to a circular economy. And we're posting up whatever we think is relevant, is affecting our materials economy. What are the key kind of aspects to that? Up here we have economic in the top right, social over here, getting a bit crowded at this stage, but you can see down here industrial and technological, and over here environmental. So if you take a look at what others are posting up, I think you'll get an idea. We're trying to think about what's affecting this situation. Yeah. Okay, let's just take one more minute. I see some people still working there on the mirror board, so let's take one more minute just to wrap up before we hear from our coaches. Okay, let's take a pause there now. Obviously, we've just begun really many factors and actors affecting this. I'll just say, obviously, a mapping exercise would normally involve drawing these connections and so forth. It turns out to be very difficult in a large group like this to be able to do something like that. And that's why after the event, we will do a synthesizing workshop with our little team to try and synthesize the ideas here and draw some connections and so forth. So for the moment, we're just posting up the ideas. Afterwards, we'll start doing those connections and synthesizing. We'll share back with you as an outcome from this event within a few days an infographic to give you an overview of what's coming out of this. Obviously, at the moment, it's very difficult to digest like this. It's a work in progress. Afterwards, we'll synthesize it so that we can get an overview to the whole thing and really see what we've come up with. But for the moment, we'll leave out, you can put in a few connections if you want, but generally we don't need so many connections, otherwise it gets quite complicated. Okay, great. So Dina, this is you first up, the blue ones. Maybe I'll stop sharing my screen. What did you come up with, Dina? So let's pause there for now and take a look at what we've got.
Sorry, yeah. We couldn't hear Tina. I don't know if you could hear her, but a lot of us couldn't hear Tina.
Okay, sorry. You're on mute, Tina.
Okay, thank you. You didn't hear anything of what I said?
Sorry, no.
Oh, shoot. Okay, because I unmuted myself, but then again, I got muted, I think, unconsciously. No, I said I was really excited about everything that I read. And unfortunately, I haven't been able to read everything yet. But for those that I read, it was really beautiful. Especially, for example, the one emphasizing on, for example, going from high-tech solutions towards the low-tech solutions, and then with the LET, so traditional ecological knowledge-based ones instead of the high-tech ones. It's exactly down.
Yeah, so who was this, who posted this one up?
I did that one. It's a Joanne from Toronto. The low-tech solution is LOTEK, not technology. So traditional ecological knowledge. This is the idea from Julia Wilson. So her book, Radical Indigenization, Leveraging Low-Tech. It has profound ecological, environmental significance, and it also taps into very much community-based approaches to initiate, to design solutions that benefit the very communities that are impacted by the problems.
Yeah, it's almost like it plays into a philosophy too around kind of simplicity of lifestyle and so forth, doesn't it? Just to move away from the need for ever greater complicated technologies and way of life to possibly, yeah, you can, I guess it's really accounting for and factoring the cost of building complicated large systems that maybe people don't understand and so forth. If you really value simplicity and low tech, I guess, then that would change things a lot. We often adopt the most kind of high tech solution to things, which isn't always the best in that kind of holistic perspective.
Yeah, the other aspect of low tech solutions are they're context rich, and they're localized. So they're not the same, depends on the location and the environment. So we don't have this sort of a mono single solutions that led by big tech, high-tech companies. So I'm sorry I'm not on video. It's early morning hours in Toronto. So.
Yeah, I really love that one. And actually in line with that one as well, the traditional practices to store water. I had a background also in international land and water management, and I've seen, especially in North Africa, different ways of restoring water for underground water aquifers. But I also, I was very, but then in the West and different kind of climates, different kind of traditional usage are needed. So I was also wondering about that person who wrote it down, about the traditional practices to store water, what he or she meant by that, and what kind of examples he or she had. And why it's so important.
Yeah, there's quite a bit here on water. Isn't there overuse of groundwater, non-recycled plastic? Okay, so sewage
Use of
treatment.
traditional practices.
Traditional practices.
And then for agriculture and groundwater recharge.
Yeah, the circular economy needs to be applied in the context of water systems also, as you note. Okay, great. Should we maybe pass it on to Courtney?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, just checking. Great. So I really appreciated all of the ideas that emerged, and I was doing my best to take a look around everything as they were getting parked. And what came to mind was, you know, as this is a systems-oriented conversation, really we think about the iceberg metaphor, right? So what do we see on top is the manifestation or the symptom of the challenges, and then what's really driving it. So I saw a lot of factors and actors being mapped around mindsets, things that could connect to mindsets, things around you know, interventions that could look like different types of education. So could curricula include and incorporate design, circular design, information like that. I really saw that, but also across the spectrum, we see upstream a lot of things that would connect with incentivizing different types of ways to kind of foster new experimentation. And I'll go back and mention specifically the way certain things I thought were worded, but then also new regulations. And then the other theme I saw too was around data. So ways in which we could foster collective intelligence, so more awareness around what other resources and alternative materials exist. If we could speed that up at scale, you can imagine, you know, so many other types of innovations could be developed, which could be very much localized. I really appreciate the conversation around honoring local context, because without that, we're really having a very, you know, a conversation in the sky. It really comes down to communities on the ground. It comes down to mindsets and behaviors as well. So just the quick laundry list of things, and then maybe whomever kind of contributed could add on and add further reference. But really appreciated the one that was really about you know, sharing. Actually, there was one with the community garden and school supply chain. So if you're thinking of hyperlocal food availability, but then also if you imagine, and this exists already in certain places where there's school gardens and curricula that are integrating circular principles, educating the kids, but also feeding right naturally into either their food at school or in the local communities. I mean, just imagine if that was the mainstream, that would be a game changer in many ways. Also around, as I mentioned, I think there was something around data and supply chains. This also connects to the life cycle assessment. So if there was a requirement to ensure that companies actually build this into what they do and make that knowledge public. I think somebody mentioned having a QR code scanner, similar to the idea of the life cycle assessment, but understanding where everything in that supply chain is coming from. I think, again, if you imagine at scale, this would be huge, because what you don't know, you would have access to. And I think that's what one of the key challenges with circular economy. Someone else mentioned, you know, not every, it might be buzz or jargon for the everyday person or many people until you make it really tangible and concrete. And these kinds of things do help do that. And then the other one I also really appreciated was investment in out-of-the-box experimentation. So if you can imagine, if governments has sandboxes to help, you know, SMEs or small to medium-sized businesses or large corporations, you know, really actually bring innovations to life because there's some kind of incentive, either like a subsidy or regulatory sandbox of sorts that allow for that. So I'll stop there. I kind of mentioned a few different things, but I think there were some common themes. So maybe we can see who would like to jump in. Okay, cool. We have some people in the chat over here. Justin, if you want to chime in. And Matisse after, perhaps.
Sure. Yeah, so the QR code was my idea indeed. I was a bit quick in thinking in solutions, but it always seemed to me also a good idea to, if you buy a product in a store, that you could scan the QR code and see where it comes from and see where it possibly goes to as well, to really get that circular mindset as well in people.
Great, thanks. Also, I think it would be helpful. I mean, I think most people on the call are either very enthusiastic or perhaps practitioners or entrepreneurs. If you know of things that are linked that exist in the real world, please feel free to share the link to models. I know we had Lou earlier on here from Circle Economies putting together 3,000 case studies, for example, on the space. So just cross-pollination is really helpful. But thanks for sharing that. And then I think we also had Matisse, and then Dora, you mentioned, I think, something about the gardens.
Yeah, well, I actually have to move on shortly.
Oh, sure.
Courtney, so
okay.
We're a bit short on time, but yeah, if someone else wants to jump in briefly, 30 seconds or so, you're welcome to.
Just want to quickly add that gardens are not just for the fact that they provide something, but they are also a tool for learning about systems. So you don't have to talk about, you know, systems in a very abstract way and how you understand it, but you can actually dig your hands into it.
Great. Yeah, I love the metaphor, systems gardening. Right. Okay, so let's stay going. That's Rebecca, that's you. Alex, what did you come up with?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, also saw some really nice emergent themes, I think mostly of connecting ideas, connecting with people, connecting with indigenous knowledge, which was one also that I found really nice in the education section. Mine are the orange sticky notes that are all around. So if you identify yours as one that I have highlighted, some of them I just highlighted because I was also curious about elaborating on that idea and maybe even taking it into the next realm of our mapping process here. And I think what else I came across a lot was this enabling a smooth and just transition into what the circular economy, what we hope that it can be, and how do we take what we need to leave behind in a just and social way, including those jobs and those people and that information, those resources. How do we transfer those into a system that works better for both people and planet? And I think, I could go on for so much, but I also want to leave some space for the other coaches. But I would like to just pause on the, working within ecosystem boundaries. I think defining those boundaries, that's something that stood out to me in actually recognizing that boundary as maybe not so much of a boundary as more of a relationship. And finding even this idea of ecosystem services and how they play a role in also creating the economy that is both a service to both parts of what we're trying to deal with here and what we're trying to match up with people and planet. So I think identifying that more of a relationship there and the crossover between the services that we provide and the services that nature provides and finding that balance there. So I think in taking those into the next frame here, into the next circle, it'll be very interesting to see how we bring those through into tangible ways. Like, how do we define those boundaries? How do we make sure, like for the next section where it says materials, where we have started creating these biomaterials and now there's a lack of uptake, a lack of interest. What is that barrier and why is there this unuptake of such a technology? Yeah, I'll move on to the next.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much, Rebecca. We will stay going for the sake of time. So Danielle, what did you come up with?
Sure. I must say I wasn't able to read all of them because it was such an enriching moment with all the contributions. But I would like to highlight two stickers. The one being the development of circular economy storytelling and narratives, because I really believe in the power of narrative and story, and it's also it's a very characteristic thing in humans to be able to connect and relate with stories, and also to allow them to guide our behavior in the world. It's at this stage it can be something a little bit abstract, but I would like to invite the person who wrote these stickers, if he or she wants to add something on it. But I really think it's important to have a reality that we want to move away from, and the one that we want to pursue and stimulate. Yeah.
Hi everyone.
Please.
Paulo here. Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it down very well, Daniel. I think that stories that we tell ourselves and how we tell those stories can shape our behaviors in ways that are unimaginable. The powers of stories are really captivating, and I think going on beyond those to really highlight success stories and things to inspire others to drive action is really the core of it.
Sure, thank you. And perhaps this sticker will allow for leverage points to come after it. But then I would also like to highlight another sticker. I think it's one I had in common with Rebecca, I think, which is facilitate finding relevant partners for your specific circular system innovation, because I think a lot of work in circular economy has to do with building partnerships and synergies, and the ability of building cross synergies, and to find what's available next to me or in my sector or in my business area that can with whom I can create a relationship that can be mutually beneficial. So a lot of work I think is being done in this area with the creation of a lot of platforms for matching platforms amongst, let's say, social enterprises and also businesses. But I would also like to invite, for a few seconds, the person who wrote this would like to add something. That would be good.
I wrote this post-it, and I am working at Data Science University and trying to see how data can help with accelerating the circular economy. And I think maybe social network analysis could be applied here to find partners that you didn't think of before. Because I think a lot of good things are happening, but how to find quickly the relevant parties is a challenge.
Yeah. So
Yes.
I think it just kind of ties together, like Courtney was talking about data, and I think transparency. Imagine being able to see what's going on around you, what different organizations are doing, where materials are flowing, and so forth. That data and that transparency would provide the context for the emergence of many new forms of collaboration that are needed in kind of changing the structure of the flow of things through those collaborations. Okay, sorry, Danielle, got to stay going. Marissa, love to hear what you have found for us. You're on mute, Marissa.
Yeah, bye, sorry. There's loads of interesting stuff, so it's a real shame we have such a short time. I guess one that really stood out for me that I'd like to hear more from is the person who wrote the sense that resources are infinite. And I know that sounds like a really obvious kind of point to make, but I'd really like to hear from that person and their thoughts around why they put that.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, we all have the idea that it's very obvious in the sense that that indeed resources are infinite, and well, some are really not very circular. I think in the sense like those precious materials that we use all our technology for, and yeah, we really should get more aware of what's the actual current state of our resources, and how much we can also get it back with a circular way, and how much which is just the water supply, for example. it's not an infinite supply, and we can circulate some water back into it. But yeah, to see also how it goes around would be quite interesting, and to be aware of that.
I guess my reason for asking, just very briefly, was that fact that I think there's a balance between, having this sense of, yes, resources are not infinite, but also that mentality of scarcity can also impact the way people try to, I guess, take power and grab resources by nation, through border control. There's a lot of other ways that mentality can also. So I think there's a really interesting tension there that we often don't address, because yes, I agree that resources are infinite and we should treat them as such, but also if people are always thinking in that way, then people are always going to be trying their very hardest to get more. So yeah, I mean, just to share, that was what I was thinking. I really like that one as well, because I think it's a really difficult one to try and balance in the circular economy. I also like the one about viewing women as assets to combat gender bias. If we have time just to hear from that one person, do we just?
Yep, we've got a minute or so.
Who wrote that one, please?
That was me. My name is Agnes Meneses. I worked a lot in that field, and I think because we don't look at women as assets, we forget them as part of the circular economy, and we don't necessarily highlight the strengths that they have. And by failing to see them as part of the community, we inadvertently design systems that don't include everybody.
I think there's also been some research done by the World Business Council that suggests that communities or kind of organizations that have women in leadership positions often also take much greater care of the environment and the people, but we won't go into
Yes.
that. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Okay, so let's move on from there. And well done, everyone. Look at that, quite a cosmos of different ideas. As mentioned, we will synthesize this, so we won't be losing the ideas. We'll cluster them, we'll synthesize them, we'll connect them, we'll turn them into an infographic, so you'll get, well, we'll do our best to capture the good ideas here and make sure that you get them coming out of this. Okay, so let's move on to the second section here. We're talking about leverage points. These are places where we might intervene, obviously based upon what we've come up with here. We're going to look for what we might do about that, right? How we might change that dynamic, how we might grow a new system. What do we want to amplify and what do we want to dampen down in terms of transitioning this system to a new model, away from the linear to the circular model. So that's the second section here. So again, I welcome you to join, and please keep it in line with the structure we have here, social and economic and so forth, so that we can see the linkages. You're welcome to draw, pull out lines and connect them so that we can see what you did last time and how it kind of relates to ideas you have this time, a bit like that. But let's jump in. We'll take about 15 minutes or so, a little bit less to do that. And yeah, let's do that. Please keep the yellow colored sticky like that. Great. Any questions or comments? You can post them in the chat there.
We're just wondering where that relaxing music was from before, which helped us get into the zone of creative thinking. I don't know if we can have that again.
Okay, let me look for that. Yeah, 1 minute. How's that, James? Do you hear? No, sorry, 1 second. a number of people have just joined, so that you know what we're doing at this stage. We've finished an exercise in the center here where we're mapping the factors affecting the transition to a circular economy. And now here on this second circle, you can see people posting up places where we might intervene, leverage points, how we might amplify certain beneficial aspects or dampen down others in this transition to a new circular economy. So I welcome you to join on the Miro board. James will share a link there and post up any ideas you have on that. We'll take just a couple more minutes before we take a look at those. Okay, let's take a look at what we've come up with. A lot of stuff here, particularly up at the top there. It's a lot around social factors and economic factors. Well, social factors. We have a lot over here. Let's jump right in. Dina, what do you think?
Make sure that I'm unmuted. Yeah, actually, I was really amazed about how enriched the results are, or the things that emerged. So I'm still actually embracing it all. But I had one that really triggered me a lot, or actually that I found very interesting, is especially with regard, usually what we do with regard to facilitating sustainable development or circular economy for this matter, we focus on executing things a bit more instead of creating spaces when it comes to our leadership. And that's the one that I really liked a lot more and would like to ponder a bit about more on. I made it blue. Create space for the local traditional organizations, practice knowledge often lost in the global circular conversation. The one I would really like to give actually the place for the one that wrote it down to share a bit more about he or she, why it's important that we create spaces from which actually this change can emerge.
Did you want us to come in? That was me.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi, Sharma.
Hi, Dina. So I am a practitioner working, I'm mostly in health, but I end up working across various intersections. And I find that, you know, there is a disconnect. We don't have enough connect back to, I think somebody else was talking about it, indigenous knowledge, local community practices, things that have worked for us in the past. And we sometimes seem to reinvent the wheel, and we don't create spaces for people to come in. I think we all think, especially when it comes to language, I think there's a lot that happens in English and then within our countries in other languages, and there's such a disconnect between what happens. And so the silos just, I don't think ever get sufficiently bridged. And I think there's a big bridging that is needed, especially in terms of creating space and bringing more local people and sort of traditional information, knowledge and voices for that. Yeah.
To also harness that. Okay.
Absolutely. It's very powerful. I think a lot of people are doing things. It's just that we're sort of somewhere else and disconnected from that.
It's very shortly, because I think this is also the way how we are all together to give voices to different kind of people. But could you perhaps emphasize just a bit, because I really want to dive in, how you practice it in your work with creating space?
So, I mean, a lot of my work is with local community groups and creating spaces for them in these forums at different levels. Creating meaningful ways in which we can partner with local communities and organizations, and how we actually enable them to come to relevant forums and spaces. And I think that's perhaps why I do this, is actually I'm in these forums to try and create that bridging that is possible.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know if I have time to highlight another one, Josh.
Yeah, go for a quick one.
Well, along with that one, actually, the whole of society, just beneath it, the whole of society, with everyone playing roles and contributing to creating and solving it. I think from also emergence and complex theory, if I look at the world the way it is, it's actually the product of us people interacting with our environment on a bigger whole throughout time. And I think everyone can play in his or her own role in contributing and solving the problems. I think this is a very beautiful approach, but it's still very broad. And I was very interested on the person itself who wrote it down, if she or he could highlight it a bit. Also to say,
sorry, Dina, that was a whole bunch of things that I work on. So they came out as a couple of different things, trying to articulate more meaningfully the many aspects that are there to this. So yes.
Yeah, seeing the whole society as a whole, with everyone having a role that he or she can fulfill as part of it. Thank you very much. I think a lot more, but considering the time, I can keep it like this.
That's great. Thank you, Dina. Okay, so Courtney, what did you come up with?
Wow, and just to follow on, so I think you were just opening a very juicy discussion that actually gets us into that space around power and almost, you know, the different dynamics of whose voice is defining the agenda. And here we are speaking all in English, and what a privilege to if ideally we could do simultaneous translation with people from everywhere in real time as well. So anyway, you know, again, just incredible things. So I'm just going to run through a few, and if you wrote something related, please feel free to chime in or put it in the chat box. But from very concrete to very a little bit more of paradigm shifting, but the first concrete one anyway was you know, videos of the production cycles of how things are produced. If we could literally access, you know, it's almost Sesame Street from back in the day, if you remember how they show you, they make crayons, you know, those types of things I think would be really powerful, either in curricula or for consumers. And that's quite interesting, and maybe that exists too, actually. But other things too is there was something around a legal structure for ensuring that planned obsolescence was not a part of, that was part of, not a part of a model, for example. So if you had businesses and enterprises that was a part of it. I don't know all the details of B Corp, but maybe there's a piece around what B Corp is already doing in their assessments that relates to demonstrating that you're not generating designs for that kind of thing. Other ones include, you know, literally harnessing the value between waste management and disposal. I've heard that in Spain, for example, and in other parts of the world, you'll have a tax, or you have to pay to have your waste collected, for example. So the more you incentivize, or you put a cost or a tax onto just throwing things away, then that also changes human behavior. So I'm sure there's some case studies around that, but somebody mentioned that. And then the last one was around, I mean, there's many, but just some highlights that I hadn't thought of as deeply, was just making public reporting mandatory, right? So the materials that companies are using, if that was a requirement for them to report in more granular detail, because of course we have some access to that, but if that was a mainstream thing, then you can imagine that changes the whole company's thinking and thought process in their supply chains too. So I'll stop there and see if anybody wanted to jump in. I think we've got a few people in the chat, maybe Justin and then Kyle. Over to you.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I wasn't expecting to speak right now.
Oh yeah, please.
Hey everyone. Yeah, just for a bit of background context, actually. So I work at B Lab UK, which supports the growth of the B Corp movement there. So I think, you know, in terms of trying to get businesses to think differently in terms of like the whole life scale of sort of the life scale. What am I talking about? The whole life cycle of a product or a service that they develop, you know, in terms of like, you know, should they even make the product in the first place, and how does it actually live through that process, and maybe, you know, move away from recycling so it's a bit more regenerative. So we have these conversations, and it's sort of built into the impact assessment tools that we've got to kind of encourage businesses to make this shift, and also sort of educate their users of their products and services, as well as kind of plug into the kind of the systems that they work in to sort of shift behaviors as well. So I think it's an interesting dynamic there, because it's encouraging businesses to think more differently. So there is a kind of the stick that's coming in terms of like legislative change, and that's what we're pushing, but also the incentives to kind of make those transitions in terms of research and development, because it does end up being more efficient for them in the longer term there. So I think there's probably more that we could look on that, but I'll be quiet for now. But thanks for the space.
Great, and feel free to add links in the chat just so we can look it up as well, resources, Kyle. And then I see we have a hand from Esty, and then also I think Justin also had something. Maybe, did you have a question, Esty, or wanted to add on to what Kyle was mentioning?
Yes, so I just want to ask, I'm quite curious what Kyle was saying, that, you know, you can kind of evaluate a business model and then kind of inform them or advise them or how they can be more sustainable. But I'm just wondering, what do the businesses get out of it? Why would they be interested in doing that? Would it cost them more? So this is something I've been wondering, you know, how can you actually get them to be interested in it? Because what are they benefiting from this?
Okay, I think we'll have to leave that an open question for the sake of time. Thank you guys for that. So I want to move on to Rebecca. Let's see what you've come up with, Rebecca.
Yes, hi. I came across, I think one big one was this idea of the materials and standardizing them across industries by using these codes, regulations, finding ways to communicate these things. And I wondered if somebody would elaborate either on this idea of the codes and maybe go into a bit more detail there, or on how this data might be communicated either to the consumer or within, and what the use of that might be, and going on to what the effect might be of having that standardized across the board. And yeah, communicating it in the right way that it is understood and evaluated right. Someone want to jump in? I think the comment was up top right or top left. Visualize the data, and even getting people to vote green based on this data. I was interested in that comment.
That was me, sorry. Yeah, so how do we visualize? Just imagine we had a visual. Over here in the UK, there's a lot of trust that's kind of been lost recently about what's happening with government. And people are not making the right choices when they vote. Just imagine they had a bit more information and there was some visual on this, that how are politicians keeping to their word, and how can we actually, vote in a much more kind of thorough or ethical way.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, I think my thought was on that trust notion, exactly that. Yeah, getting this information in a way that it is trusted and standardized. But yeah, thank you for sharing. I think I'll jump also onto my next sticky note that I highlighted, where there's even a little comment section that started here on this 24-hour work week. Doing is also impacting, more work is more waste. Whoever posted that and whoever started discussing that, maybe you want to get on the chat here.
Yeah, I posted that one. We had a nice discussion about that between some visitors. But yeah, the notion of like working, always working just produces waste by itself. So less working is actually producing and wasting less. But then there was this good comment from James, I think, who said like if you have more free time, there's more consumption, which is I think a valid fear. But if we promote more activities that don't encourage consumption, like yoga and volunteering, there's not that much resources consumption, which requires a different mindset as well. But that's so I think it needs to cooperate, less working and also more focus on different activities which are more beneficial than hurting the
Great.
Yeah,
thanks Justin. Okay, we move on. I mean, it's a good point. It's the idea of leverage points. We're talking about mental models and culture there. We know that it's at the bottom of the iceberg where we get that really high leverage, because you can actually bypass the whole supply chain and all of this production and all of this consumption by actually just consuming less, doing a bit of meditation, as you say. Okay, so Danielle, do you want to jump in with what did you come up with?
Yes, sure. I actually found a few interesting points, but I will focus my part on two stickers that are related to the modular design sticker. So I would start with the create and design use after deconstruction sticker. I think it touches a really interesting point, which is the mental model or the awareness to design products for disassembly, for its afterlife, after its intended life cycle of usage. And of course, if the person who wrote this want to jump in quickly, please go ahead.
Yeah, I can jump in. I wrote it, Jan Quinten. Yeah, because you can indeed design something modular, but you always also need to make sure that what's around it, well, if it's modular and you can deconstruct it at the end, there should still be a use for it. Otherwise, it would be useless to make it modular. So that's always the why behind it, and also creating a market as well.
Yeah, thank you. And it's a very, very nice way to combat the short-termism of thinking just about the first cycle of usage of something, sure. But and then I would focus also the attention quickly on the sticker that reads, use the knowledge from different sectors to learn from each other and find better ways. This one really sparked my interest, because it's immediately made me think about the huge inefficiencies that are related to innovation in general, but particularly in the circular economy. And it also made me think about this other concept that is exaptation, or in other words, radical repurposing. And I think this whole point bears a huge opportunity for innovation efficiencies enhancement, because through collaboration and partnership, perhaps sectors or industries can look around and see what is already being done, and what technologies and features are already in place, and what can I do about it, and how can I use it to improve the efficiencies of my innovation processes. Yeah, that would be it.
Okay, great. Thank you very much,
And
Daniel.
sorry, Joss, and if the person, of course, wants to quickly jump in, please go ahead. Sorry.
I can jump in again. I went to the moderator design.
Okay.
But yeah, for me as well, I think it's one of my main focus points. I've also, for example, studied architecture, then started working for a train company and see how we can use the material they use inside trains into architecture. So really, it was a new material for me, and it has really nice applications, for example, in the built environment. So I think that's really important how we can learn from each other. So to quickly jump in.
Yeah, if you can make things visible, then you can see where the potential for collaboration is, and you can create new structures, new patterns, and so forth, and start rewiring the economy, which is kind of ultimately what this is about. So let's stay going. Marissa, what have you found?
I'm going to play against the rules and go for one that I saw earlier, but I think it's also a leverage point. Maybe someone can share more. The person that put the media subsidized by powers that be, break the cycle of dedicated coverage and dedicated channels through new means, avoiding legacy media. Can somebody expand upon that, please? Are they still here? No? Okay.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Hi there.
Hello. Sorry, yes.
Did you write that sticky?
Yes. Well,
could you
thanks
share more
for,
about that and how you connect it to the kind of leverage point for the circular economy?
well, first of all, thanks for the first time actually I joined such a meeting, and I have to acknowledge everyone for the great contributions and great ideas that I'm going to follow definitely later on. But yes, basically, if we don't have platforms that shape the minds of people and promote the circular economy.
You're on mute, Osman, for some reason.
I apologize. Okay, I'm not going to repeat everything. So again,
I think I think it's a good point, right? How do we create both new narratives, but new ways of kind of distributing that narrative, new platforms, new stories, and new media for that? Okay, great. Marissa?
And toss up between the feeling that for many that the situation is too complex that they can make a difference, or that they can't make a difference. I definitely get that sense when thinking that I want to change the world by myself.
So Lou, is this you?
Yeah, that was me. It's Fabienne. I'm Marissa. I'm good, thanks. So yeah, I hear that a lot. Just people feel it's too much and then we're doomed and there's no hope. So there's something that just posted in the Christmas time. I can't remember what it was, but it just was basically something that gives people hope about the fact that there are still options to get out of this. And I think that's really a good leverage point to sort of get down there, talk to the people on the street and see what is their opinion, how they feel about things. So getting a bit of design thinking, I guess. What is the situation out there, not what we think it is, and get leverage points from that. That was the comment. Thank you.
Thanks, Fabienne. Thanks. Good to hear that. I think it's a really important point that collectively that's probably a really powerful leverage point, even if by itself it doesn't seem like it's one that can actually affect much. Do I have time for one more, Joss?
Yeah, quickly.
Or information or awareness of the work conditions, or universal basic income, one of the two, whoever's.
Hi, I wrote the universal basic income. Yeah, I just think really to be trying to progress to a new way of living, people need to be supported to transition. Otherwise, you know, they just can't because there's too much going on. So I put it in the chat before on Maslow hierarchy of needs, just kind of looking at that. And the last level being actualization. You need your basic needs met first, otherwise it's not going to happen.
Great, thank you very much, Josh and Marissa. So we've hit our 90 minutes. We've come to the end of today's journey. It was a bit of a whirlwind tour, right? A lot of ideas. And wow, look at this, so many different dimensions to this, what we're dealing with here. We know it's a very complex issue, a very complex system, transitioning our economies to a circular model. And this is about getting a holistic perspective on that, right? All the different dimensions to it. And I think two or three things that popped out. We talked a lot about stories and narratives and yeah, mental models and so forth. We know that's a big leverage point. And also about collaboration and data and transparency to enable that as a way to kind of change the structures in our economy and enable those new kind of flows and so forth. So those were two kind of themes. Thanks a lot, everyone, for contributing here. We're going to, as mentioned, turn this into an infographic, and we'll share that back with you in the community website within a couple of days, so that you're able to see kind of the key ideas that we managed to surface. So if you receive tokens, then send us an email. James will share the email with you, info@systems innovation, and we will, you can redeem your tokens there. Just send your name and the color of your tokens. Yeah, so that's that. Thanks a lot for joining. Thanks a lot for the hosts, and thanks for everyone for contributing. And we'll wrap up here. Our next event with our London hub is in a couple of weeks. We'll be working on the systems thinking canvas, working on another workshop, but we're gonna wrap up now. Great to see you all here. Great to make this happen. It was a really good session, actually. Okay, take care.
Cheers. Bye, everybody.
And if anyone wants to join the Singapore hub, we'll be holding events in the next couple of months. We have some really great events.